Hey, is this thing on? Are we recording? Can I get a tech person? Oh, for the love of ed tech. Visor is the tool you need to manage Chromebooks and other IT assets in your school district. Visor has teamed up with Jake Miller to offer our listeners a free signed copy of his book, Educational Duct Tape. Go to visor.cloud/loveedtech. That's VIZOR.cloud/loveedtech to find out more. Joining us today is Guy Fogle, who is PR and Communications Coordinator at the Montgomery County Educational Service Center. I want to know how you got involved in education is my first question for you.
Sucked in.
Yeah, because after you met me and you were like going, how does he have anything to do with teaching our children, right? It goes back to my mother, actually. Kara was a school teacher. She was a fourth grade school teacher and for 30 years.
Oh,
and I remember as I got older going into her classrooms and after school because her days went longer. So I got to go in and then she would like put me to work, like, reading to the kids or collecting papers or something or interacting with them in a workshop setting. So, that kind of stuck with me and I enjoyed the opportunity to, be around the kids. And then I thought, well, I also wanted to coach.
Oh, yeah.
And, so I coached basketball. So most people didn't realize that when I was in television, when I first started in television, I was working on my master's in education because I always thought that in television, there was a guy named Carl Day who was a longtime anchor. He said, Guy, you're going to be hired to be fired. That's the way it is in media. So I'm thinking I better have a plan B, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's what I did. I got my certification. I got a master's in secondary teaching from the University of Dayton. And there were times I would be covering sporting events, like, say, Dayton basketball. I would be in press row grading papers while I'm watching the game and getting my story ready for the 11 o'clock. So, yeah, most people probably, had no idea. But, yeah, I was working on my education stuff for a long time. And it started as, I had a love for it, but then Carl Day told me I needed a plan B. So
it was smart
Thanks,
that you
Carl.
listened to him and
yeah.
had
He was a very wise man. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So how many years were you in television?
I did right about 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started out as a sports anchor, and I did just weekends for the first 2 years, and then they made me full time, and then it kind of worked out. And then there was a period where I was at Channel 7. I was at Channel 22 originally, and then I went to Channel 7. But I was part-time there because I was teaching and coaching, and I couldn't do full-time television at that point.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but then I went back to being in television full-time and also, in education. I was doing 2 full-time jobs for many years.
that's
Yeah.
I don't know how you balanced it. Yeah.
I would have to be at school at 7:15 in the morning, 6:45 if I wanted to use the copier. But and then I would leave at 3:15, and I'd have to be at the station, the news station, at 3:30 to be ready for the 6 o'clock. And I was doing the weekday 6 and 11 there at Channel 2 for a long time too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So when you were teaching, what were you teaching?
Well, to probably ask the kids, not much. We had a lot of fun. I taught writing, different aspects of writing. For instance, essay writing, technical writing, creative writing. I also had the younger, the freshmen who are still trying to figure out the basic format of a paragraph, what goes in a sentence, then what sentences go into a paragraph, and then trying to put together essays. And then I also taught literature. I taught British literature, American literature.
Oh, wow.
and short stories. And I also taught communications, and I taught a class based on um, characteristics of trying to get a job. So, we had the 7 behavioral characteristics, and I developed a course on that I taught the kids. They were generally juniors and seniors getting ready to go to college or find a career. Uh,
That would have been really useful.
yeah, and then I taught speech. Getting kids a chance to have the courage to stand up in front of people and talk.
Yeah.
So, I actually developed a course for that. And I also taught at the University of Dayton part time as an instructor. So I was able to use, kind of mirror those things,
Yeah.
teaching communication and speech. I just kind of took what I was doing at the high school level and jacked it up, to the college level and added things to it. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's what I was teaching.
What do you think the value in like those things are, like speech and communications and learning how to write properly and because I feel like there would be some people that are like, well,
Yeah, I know
if
what
you're not
you're,
going to be
yeah.
a writer,
Yeah.
you don't really need it kind of thing.
Well, I think I had a wide array of kids that
Hmm.
were in my classrooms. I started the day with advanced placement kids. They were going to go to college, most of them. I had a chance to um, shape how they wrote, polish up what they were writing to where when they got to the collegiate level, they knew how to write essays. They knew how to write, and there's so many different kind of essays,
Hmm.
how to pick and choose what you need to do. And I think, then when the younger kids, it was more of, and you can say this with all of them, whether they were, freshmen who were, just trying to get their feet under them, or seniors who knew what they were doing. The basic thing I tried to stress was confidence,
Wow.
and confidence in what you were doing, and being able to write something and have confidence in that. And you know I think the second thing that was, I used to hit on them every day, was the attention to detail.
Hmm.
And if you can pay attention to detail and you're confident, I don't care what you're doing, you're going to do pretty well. And I would show them how those little things add up to be the big things, and it can tell a story about you if those little things aren't positives.
Uh-huh.
And or there's and we would have conversations about, not everybody can get up and talk in front of a bunch of people, but you
Hmm.
can still express yourself and have confidence in doing it. And so I think those two things, the confidence piece and the attention to detail, that's what, more so than teaching Shakespeare, more so than Dickens, and more so than all these other things, it was those concepts of confidence and attention to detail. And because in my mind I thought, well, those are the things that are going to serve them well.
Hmm.
Skills over content. Not that there's anything wrong with the content, but life skills.
Yeah, and and it's kind of ironic because schools, they're content oriented, and that
Hmm.
doesn't
Yeah.
always serve the kids well. If you have a kid who's just a really top notch science student, but he can't communicate, he can't,
Yep.
there's a deficit there in terms of social norms and social behavior. You've done the kid no favors. I have a nephew who's a rocket scientist. Literally, he's out at
Yeah.
Wright State
Yeah.
and Wright Pat. He works, in conjunction. And when he came into the classroom, he was really shy and really quiet and right. But now, this young man has got this huge brain, and he's got this huge heart. He's got a wife and kids, and now he's got this huge voice because he can share, and he can,
Right.
and there's a confidence when you talk to him. And I think that's, you don't do anybody any favors if you're not teaching some life skills, and that's what I was trying to
Right.
do with those two basic premises.
Hmm. I like that. Well, and I like your lesson of kind of reputation, the small things leading to the big things,
Oh yeah,
and the
Hmm.
attention to detail because
yeah.
yeah,
I,
I
I
think
I mean, when you go into work, if you're not paying attention to details, and gosh, I've been here 5 years, and there's times, my boss will call me down and go, perhaps you need to spend a little more time on the little things on this one, because you get in a hurry, you get
Yeah.
rushed. But the
Yeah.
problem is if you're not working around people who know you
Mm-hmm.
or know you well, they're going to think, oh, okay, I got to carry this person, or that person's a lightweight, or that person's, an empty suit. So,
Right.
you just got to, and it doesn't matter if you're a welder, if you're a plumber, if you're a pilot, if you're a teacher, whatever, those little things,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
can
Yeah.
pick at you and affect your confidence. So,
Well, and I'm thinking too, in this day and age with, social media and those kind of things too, like, I think that's an important lesson for young students to remember is like the reputation that it's leaving when
mm,
they're actively involved. It's kind of like individual PR,
yeah. Well,
you know?
I have younger kids and I have older kids,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and my older kids, when they were first trying to get that leg out of college and get a job, I actually went through one in particular, and I started looking at his stuff that he posted and trying to be delicate, but trying to say, hey, I'm trying to give you some advice here. And so I took him to lunch, and I said, hey, I got to tell you, I bet you had the best time ever when you were with those guys, at whatever event that was. But that picture is
Yeah.
is not the one. I would just keep that memory to yourself and pull that off of there, because people are going to think something. They're going to think something. And
Yeah.
what I do
Yeah.
here at work is image related with the company.
Mm-hmm.
And you, there's optics, and I tried to explain to him the
Yep.
concept of optics, and he got it and he understood it, and he has a really good job now. So
Yeah, which is great, but thankfully he had you to point
Yeah.
out those things, because I think that's an important lesson that not all kids, especially when they start using social media young,
mm.
Yes.
that digital footprint piece of it, they don't
Well, and I think it
know.
surprised him that being an older fuddy duddy, that I even knew what those
Uh-huh.
social
Yeah.
platforms were, the social media platforms were. And I'm
Yeah.
pulling out all the little sites that he had on his accounts with, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think if I can find it,
Mm-hmm.
at
Right.
my age, with somebody who's in their 40s, early 50s, who's an HR person, is going to be able to find it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And not just what they post, but what you like, who you follow, who you interact
Oh
with,
yeah,
like
yeah.
all of it.
Yeah, and we tidied some stuff up, and not that he was a bad kid, but he was a college kid.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we just we tidied it up a little bit, and it worked
Yeah.
out okay for him. But that's
I could have used you.
you had to
When
do some
when I
tidying up.
interviewed,
Yeah.
I just have to tell you, when I interviewed for the job I have now, so clearly it worked out okay. The director at the time was like, "So, do you often dress like a pirate?"
Oh my.
And I was like, "Well,
Oh, that's hilarious.
on
That's
occasion, I
hilarious.
do."
That's awesome.
Because we had a pirate party, and he went on my
Hey, we're
Facebook,
not
and
judging. We're not. You don't have to
no,
explain.
I
You don't have
mean,
to
it was a
validate.
really good outfit. There was a hat. I had a monkey sewn to my shoulder. It was legitimate, legitimately a good outfit. But like, I thought I had my profile locked down, but I didn't even think to go in and look at it as someone
They do.
in
Yeah.
like an incognito
Yeah.
window or something, just to really see. So the look on my face was probably great.
Teachers, you can now earn contact hours toward grad credit for listening to the podcast.
Visit fortheloveofedtech.org for more information.
The kids that were in my classroom, and we talked about the little things. I had a girl
Mhm.
who now she's an attorney and doing wonderfully, but she was valedictorian, and I wouldn't let them type papers until the very last paper of their senior year. These are advanced placement kids. They had to
Mhm.
handwrite, and they had to follow instructions, and the instructions were designed to get them to pay attention to the details and
Yes.
follow directions. So write a line, skip a line,
Right.
write a line. You had to write cursive. You couldn't print. You had to obey
Mhm.
the margins, just the silly stuff.
Yeah.
Staple in the upper right corner, all of that nonsense.
Yeah.
She did a paper, compare and contrast paper on Beowulf, and Grendel and
Okay.
Beowulf were the two subjects, right? Well, she spelled Grendel
Mhm.
wrong every time,
Oh no.
so she wasn't valedictorian by the time it went through. Yeah, and
Oh my
and she, I don't think she hates me now because she's doing really
god.
well.
Well,
However, uh,
your name probably comes
it was a
up.
great lesson in the details. For instance, if
Mhm.
I,
Yeah.
I do all the posting and I do the content on our website and I send out press releases. I just sent one out the other day. I got written things going out. Um, that have quotes from our leaders here. If I spell something wrong or I use bad syntax or bad grammar,
Yeah.
you know what? That's a little thing, but it's a big
Yeah.
thing because there's a credibility piece now. Well, the
Yeah.
MCESC, wow, what a bunch of knuckleheads. They don't know how to spell
They
or they
can't
don't know
even
how.
spell.
Yeah. And in social media, the younger kids will, use all kind of spellings and things that are different, and that's cool. But when it's
Yeah.
a business or when you're wanting to
Mhm.
present optics of yourself or your company, well, you got to do it a little differently.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I don't do the social media here to be cool. I do it to be effective in disseminating information,
Mhm.
telling who
Right.
we are, what we do. And, I think one time 4 years ago, I sent something out and I didn't, I was in a hurry. I'm trying to create all kind of excuses here, but it was just a bonehead thing. And it had a misspelling in it. And I'm driving home and thinking that everything is great. I got this great post that went out talking about, how great we are. And then the phone rings
Mhm.
and you're going, oh God. I pulled over. I was in West Carrollton. I pulled over into the post office that's in downtown West Carrollton. I pulled into the post office and hurried up and got on and fixed it.
Yeah, I
But I was
bet.
humiliated, embarrassed, and because I got in a hurry and I didn't pay attention to the little things. So,
Mhm. I know you do a lot of video and video editing and
mm.
that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. I'm always fascinated by things like, producers of things or directors of things. And I'm like, how do you pursue that?
Well,
How do you,
and are you talking in terms of pursuing it as a career or just pursuing it just to get started in it?
yeah, either way.
Yeah, I think a little bit on my background. When you first start in television, typically you're
Mhm.
going to go shoot your own material. But I liked doing it. I would
Mhm.
rather have gone out and shot stories as opposed to anchoring. I ended up
Okay.
anchoring most of the time because that's what they wanted me to do. But I enjoyed going out and shooting stories and telling stories and putting together pictures. And
Mhm.
uh, it's so I kind of had that in my hip pocket. But when I came here, the editing piece was a piece that I didn't fully have. I had a very limited knowledge of that. So, and this sounds very flippant, but it's not. I have taught myself a lot of things that I do in this job, and one of them is the editing piece to go with video that I shoot,
Okay.
and how to make, if I shoot good video, how to make it look really better, or if I shoot bad video, how to make it look at least presentable, because it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Yeah.
taking pictures. I'm not a picture taker. I'll come over to Soy to take pictures of whatever event you have going, and I'm going to take 100 pictures to get 5
Yeah.
that are in
Yeah.
focus, where the lighting's good, somebody
Mhm.
doesn't have a mouthful of food. Uh, if
Yeah.
I don't like them, I'll still post it anyway. But it's
Fair.
but anyway. So I think, and again, this sounds flippant, but I immersed myself in reading everything I could on video and video editing. And I then went to the video aspect of it and started YouTubing and all that. Man, you can do anything, find out how to do anything on YouTubing. And I
Yeah.
just immersed myself in learning. But the absolute main thing is just do it.
Do it. Yeah.
And it's that confidence.
Mhm.
I got to tell you, I don't know how to do this, but I'm not going to let you know that I don't know how to do it. I'm going to do it till I can do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And it's one
Yeah.
of those things where, and there's all kind of resources. Like here in Dayton, Ohio, we have DATV, Dayton Access Television. It's a government funded piece. They, it is one of the most marvelous organizations because they have all the equipment, they have all the teaching, they have all the professional development. They can show you and teach you how to do anything. And I'm from editing, from video to producing to, hosting a talk show to producing a newscast. They can do all of those things, and it's just doing. It's just going out and doing it and falling on your face,
Mhm.
getting up and going. There are times I'll put together a video and I'll think, man, I think that looks pretty good, and I'll go home then and look at it after I've had some time, and I'll sit down and look at it and go, that might be the worst thing I have ever seen.
Uh,
And your feelings are hurt at first,
Uh-huh.
or if you don't get the feedback that you thought you should get.
Yeah.
And like I'll send a video to competitions, and in my mind I'm going like, well, there's no doubt that that's the best video that's ever been made in the state of Ohio in educational circles.
Uh-huh.
And they send you a letter back saying thanks for entering, and you're going like, okay, but it's just doing and having the wherewithal to realize that I can learn this. I can learn this.
Yeah.
And this sounds really crazy. You two are going to think I'm nuttier than what you already do. But
Probably not.
starting back in right when I got out of college, every year I picked a topic. And because I had done so much reading, in college, I wanted to, and it was stuff I didn't want to read. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to study. So every year, it was a New Year's resolution. Starting January 1st, this is the topic I'm going to study.
Mm.
And all I read were books on that topic. All I read were articles on that topic. Anytime I had to watch videos on that topic, I didn't waste my time with much else. And every year I picked a new topic. And one year I did photography. Another year I did videography. And it ended up, I think, videography. I think I read probably 14 books during the year, probably
Wow.
read 40 articles. And, I probably watched, 70, 75 videos, because that information, that knowledge piece is huge. And so, that's how, in a nutshell, that's how I got involved in video. And I'm not very good at it. But I try every day to get better at it.
Yeah, cuz it's something you like.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think you're
I
pretty good
really
at
like
it.
going out and telling stories. I like,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
that's what the big part of my job here is to toot our horn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I do. I like finding somebody and unique stories and tooting their horn.
Mhm.
And I don't go out in front of it. I'm Guy Fogle and I'm shooting this wonderful story. You wouldn't know that it was me shooting it. You would know, you'd know that person.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's one of the things that in the interview process here 5 years ago, I said, well, look, anybody who steps up to the microphone, people will listen to. And I said, but in situations where there is a leader, that leader should be the person stepping up to the microphone.
Mhm.
And it should never be a communication or PR person. In my opinion, there's a million people out there who are going to listen to this and go, well, you're an idiot for saying that, but it shouldn't. Like there's a school district near here. I think their comm guy's their superintendent because he's all you ever hear
Ah,
from.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
obviously like the leader may not feel comfortable with wording or whatever, but I feel like they should still be the face or the voice of
No,
the delivery.
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And I, with our superintendent here, Shannon Cox, when I first started, it was a different superintendent and he didn't, he had other things going on and didn't spend a whole lot of time with, communications and PR. In fact, this position really didn't exist. But
Mhm.
as Dr. Clifford, Rosie Clifford, and I started, kind of piecing how this thing would look, I noticed that, man, Shannon is just really communicative and communicatively effective. And why would anybody else? Why would I want to get out in front of
Mhm.
the cameras or talk about whatever issues when we have somebody so skilled and so polished and so exceptional
Yeah.
in terms of the mental aptitude of this stuff and just pushing. So we just it's been anytime there's anything that needs done that's on a big scale, I always go to Shannon. Shannon, I really think this would be good if you do this one, and she's always willing. So
Yeah, which is great. Didn't you tell me a really cool story about your mom?
my mother, she taught for 30 years. She died 3 years ago, and she lived to be 90, 91, and she was just a wonderful lady. But she was an orphan growing up, and there was a family that took her in. And what is beautiful about it, though, is that before she was taken in, her mom had taken my mother and her two sisters, who they were all between the ages of 4 and 8. They were living in a garage in a place called Drexel, Ohio. Drexel's up by
Mm-hmm.
West Dayton, and they were living in a garage. And the mom said, and they had no idea where dad was, been gone a while. So mom, she takes off every day. She would just take off and go walking. She was the middle child because she said her younger sister was always hungry, and the older sister was just always in a corner crying. And one day, the mother, her mom, and I can't call her grandma, but she said she was going to the store and she'd be back. She never came back. She took off
Oh
and went
my
to
God.
Tennessee and started another family and
What?
left those girls in the garage. So for 2 weeks, my mother would get her sisters to school, and they were wearing the same clothes every day. Mom would put food in her dress pocket so they had food the next day. They would eat dried rice, dried macaroni, and that was sitting on a counter. Um, she'd steal one of those little cartons of milk, and bring that back. But mom would take off walking sometimes just to get out. And she went past a library one day and saw these books, and she was fascinated by it. And the lady brought her inside, and mom got to see books. She'd never seen books before.
Mm.
And she said that was, just it just like light bulbs went off in her head. And then she said on her way out of there, she passed a church, a predominantly black congregation in West Dayton, and they had just finished service. And I don't know if you guys are church folks, but there's a thing called dinner on the grounds. For where
Mhm.
I went to church undergrad school, and dinner on the grounds is a big thing. People would bring it's a big potluck, and they sit at these
Right.
tables out. Well, and they noticed mom was dingy and dirty, and so they would give her fruit and bread, and so she was feeding her little sisters. Well, finally, it started to come to a head because mom one day went in, and the lady and her teacher realized that my mom had taken cardboard and tied up around her canvas shoes. And she called mom up, and by the way, the first time mom heard her name, she was in second grade.
Oh my
She
god.
didn't know her
What?
name. She was in attendance in class, and they called her name. She didn't know it was her.
Oh my
But
gosh.
anyway, so yeah, isn't it remarkable? My mom
Mhm.
failed, I think, 2 grades and ended up with 2 master's degrees and a teacher.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
Oh my gosh.
so the teacher asked her, what's it? And mom said, well, because in the snow and ice and everything, it gets in my shoes because her shoes have holes in them. So the teacher, a little bit later, had a older boy come down, talked to him, brought mom up, talked to her, and said, I want you to go with this boy. You're going to go down the street to this store, and I want you to get a pair of shoes. You don't have to pay for them. You don't have to do anything. And my mom went down and got shoes. And at that moment, this is my mom in the third grade,
Mhm.
she realized because that woman had compassion, and it was the nicest anybody had ever been to her, because she was always a dirty, dingy girl, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And mom at that moment knew she wanted to be a school teacher.
Yeah.
And her destiny was set,
Mm.
that she was going to be a school teacher. And she did it, and she did it well. She affected the lives of many, many, many people. I write a blog, and I haven't written it in a long time, but I call that story, I wrote it and put it in the blog, Souls, SOLES, for the soul.
Mhm.
And that moment, my mom realized that not everything is bad. Not
Yeah.
everybody is bad. And education is good. And being an educator is a good thing, because you can help people. And that was her whole motive. After that was just being good and being a good person. And then they finally got adopted, and yeah, it was remarkable.
Yeah. I think that's such a
She's a great lady. She was
yeah.
a wonderful lady, real quiet, small lady, but at home we
Small but
feared her.
mighty.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love that story, because I mean, it could have turned out so differently. So
It could have, and my mother ended up putting one of her sisters in nursing school, and her sister became a nurse,
wow,
and she was just always giving
giving.
and giving, yeah, and I just, that heart and that mindset that she had, came
Yeah,
that day,
as a third grader.
yeah. But she didn't know, she failed a couple of grades, and she didn't know how to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and she didn't, and they were always dirty and dingy, and that's how they kind of started finding out that, it was like, I guess the next week after the shoe incident, that the teacher realized that she'd been wearing the same thing every day, that her sister down the hallway was wearing the same thing.
Mm.
And they asked her, what's going on? And mom said, well, we're in a garage. They were living in a garage, no facilities,
Yeah,
no
Oh
water,
my God.
no, yeah,
nothing. I just,
Yeah.
I just can't imagine.
no, I can't either.
But there are kids that go through that now.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
there are kids that go through situations now, or they feel helpless. Their situation might not be like my mother's, but they're in a situation where they feel helpless.
Yeah,
And educators can create hope and can create an avenue. And that's one thing that keeps drawing me to education.
thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our discussion today. If you like our podcast, please don't forget to subscribe to get notified when new episodes are released.
For more information about our podcast and to access links and resources referenced in this episode, check us out at fortheloveofedtech.org.